Hey, ¿qué Pasa Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin today's podcast, I want to thank my sponsors. My anchor sponsors are my friends from Las Pichoneras, Jonathan Valdez, Jake, and Sergio Armenta. And also want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home, thinking of buying an investment property in Imperial and San Diego counties, make sure you call David Gastelum at 760-235-9576. He's not only a realtor, but also an investor with over 20 years of experience. He will not only sell you a property, but he'll teach you along the way on one of your most important investments that you will make. You may also find David on Facebook. Just look for David Gastelum or just give him a call, 760-235-9576. And today we are with a returning guest, Calexico City Manager, Mr. David Dale.
We as a city, we don't endorse any particular business. Just have to say that,
Yeah. They're my sponsors. They help me, buy stuff for the podcast and stuff like that.
Cool.
But they're not endorsed by the city in any way, shape, or form.
Just wanted that little statement.
Yeah. Returning guest David Dale. Thank you for being. I know you offered the first time to be make it like a monthly thing. Last time we met, it was actually a month and a half ago. So it's been a while. And back then, one of the issues that's still lingering was Santo Tomas incident. I know that you've been having a lot of vendors coming into the meetings and kind of like wondering what's gonna happen, where the situation is at. Can you give us a little update? I know you can't really say much, but
I mean, we at the city, especially I do. I mean, and council, I know we have a lot of sympathy and empathy for the vendors who have been displaced by the fire and the subsequent issues that have surfaced after that. We really feel strongly for them. At the same time, we feel strongly that we need to enforce the current codes, the city codes, and fire department, the building department, development services, code enforcement went out to the site and found numerous code violations. And so before we can allow them to open up unrestricted, those code violations need to be addressed for public safety. There's code violations with regard to structures. There's code violations with regard to electrical, fire access, the dust issues. There's numerous code violations that need to be addressed now. As a city, which as I stated before, we have there's a lot of hardships going on with the vendors, and so we're trying to accommodate that. And we sent a letter to the manager and the owners of Santo Tomas stating that yes, you can reopen, but we have numerous stipulations in there. And one of them is that you need to repair these code violations. They requested to open while at the same time doing the repairs of the code violations. And we did agree to that with those stipulations that I had mentioned before. One of the ones that they're complaining about is that in 1992, when they submitted their plans for that site, it says directly on the plan sheet says no storage of merchandise shall ever be allowed. All structures shall be code compliant, and a number of other things, and that's what we're enforcing. They're obviously not happy about that because it's labor intensive to be removing things and putting them back, and I understand that. So we're looking deeper into that issue. Yeah,
because sometimes like when you go there, you'll see that some of the businesses are like full-flown like hardware stores, kind of,
Correct. And it was never intended, as far as I can tell, it was never intended to be that. Mm-hmm. It was intended to be the definition of a swap meet.
And there's no way that they can like assign an area where they're, the vendors can, store their things instead of taking them home or whatnot. Is there a way that they can, assign a storage facility or build a storage facility?
Oh, I'm sure they could do something if they wanted to. I'm not sure, but it looks like they may store things in those trucks that are parked next to the railroad. And then, take them out of the trucks and put them back in. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that, but.
Oh, okay. The other thing that I kind of wanted to talk to you about was open position for the city council.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of questions as how to we go about, assigning a new city council member or, I mean, I think if I do remember, this has happened before, like not too long ago.
Yes, it did.
And I mean, is it the same procedure that we always take? Or
so the procedure is as council wishes, and so the way that council is going about it is they assigned an ad hoc committee. An ad hoc committee consists of 2 council members, and so what it does is it avoids the Brown Act violations. If you get 3 council members together discussing city business, suddenly you're into a meeting, and it can be no more than 2. So they selected 2 for the ad hoc committee, and a application process was advertised, and the city received 15 applications. Out of those 15, 13 were deemed eligible, and by eligible, they had to go. The city clerk has to go to the county, submit the applications, and ensure that those are registered voters in the city of Calexico with the correct address.
Okay. And from there, who else is in this group or committee that?
So the ad hoc committee consists of Councilman Hodge and Councilman Romero. Myself and the assistant city manager, Miguel Figueroa, also attended the ad hoc meeting.
There's nobody from the community that's allowed or
No, it's a closed meeting, and unless the council changes the way they wanted to go about it, but that was how the council decided. And the ad hoc committee did meet a few times, and the recommendations will be sent to council. We're thinking it'll be on the agenda for February 6th.
So they picked the one they're going to appoint, or
well, it could have been if the ad hoc committee had so desired to say we want to recommend this one, but they didn't do that. The ad hoc said we're going to give you, say, the top 3 or 4, and these are the names that we think are the best out of the 13, and then but that doesn't at all stop the council from saying, I want number 13. The council can select whomever they choose. This ad hoc committee is more of a recommendation, gives recommendations.
So from those 3 that they're going to put up, the boards and the council's going to vote on them on the next meeting, or?
I'm hoping, I believe we'll be able to get it on the council agenda for the 6th of February. That's a regular meeting. We were initially considering doing a special meeting, but the February 6th meeting agenda seems pretty light. This may be an item that goes long, so we were thinking of having a separate meeting, but we were able to. The ad hoc committee was able to agree on 3 or 4 of the top candidates, so that opened up. So now we can get it on the agenda.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying to go is like, so yeah, the 3 people that they picked, are they gonna go up to at the city council and speak, or the city council is gonna vote, or what's the process from here?
The way the ad hoc committee is sort of recommending it to be done is not to do interviews, formal interviews in the public, because this is a public setting. It's not a closed session backdoor deal. It's an open session, and so to sort of expedite the process, that they weren't recommending to do formal interviews of all 13, for example, or even the top 3 or 4. But however, during the meeting, during public comments section, those candidates can obviously speak for 3 minutes, each one of them, all 13 or 15 or whatever, whoever wants to speak can speak during the public comment session. And also probably when we open up that item on the agenda, then the public can speak on that as well.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. And I guess the big ticket item, the report.
Well, are we done with that item? There was some issues like with some members of the public saying, "Oh, this is the compadre system."
Yeah.
And I can assure you, when I was sitting in the ad hoc committee is trying to select the most qualified, not because, oh, you're my brother's wife's sister, none of that stuff.
Yeah, it was something that was flying around out there that they're gonna appoint whoever they want.
And I can see how that would be the perception based on prior politics, but at this moment, it really appears to me that it's best qualified. That's what I see it. But I mean, it's perception, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, whoever they pick is gonna be somebody that it's somebody's neighbor, somebody's cousin, or I mean,
hopefully not. I mean that could happen, but hopefully they select someone who they think is the best suited to make decisions on behalf of the city for the next year and a half. That's what the hope is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a year and a half. Because it's already taken a while now to. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I mean, I wasn't gonna bring it up because
you left me off the hook on that one.
Yeah, because it's just that. Yeah. I don't know. It's just I don't like to get into that whole it's a compadre system, and I mean, I don't know.
I like to just address it head on because that's what was being discussed. Even came out on the news.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, we're trying to run a professional city and make the right decisions for the city, not the right decisions for me, not the right decisions for the assistant city manager, but the right decisions for the 41,000 people in the city. That's what the goal is.
Yeah. So. And that's a good segue to the next topic, the report. Yeah. I mean, I get that a lot of people are mad because, it was a big chunk of money that, but I really want to, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to meet with you was because, like everybody's saying like, they're mad because of money and the administration, but, this is a whole new group of people that's in here. They had nothing to do with the situation that happened. And I just want people to kind of understand that, we have a new administration, new board. Nobody was there when all this was happening. And, I mean, I do get why they're mad. I'm a taxpayer in the city. A lot of us, struggle to, pay our dues. And yet, this big chunk of money gets lost or whatever. So, I mean, I do get why people are really, upset.
Well, first of all, to my knowledge, the money was not lost.
Yeah.
It was a matter of overspending. It was a matter of, it appears to be that administration thought that they were going to get more revenue than what was actual. Double counted some revenues, those kind of things, where they felt like they were still within their budget, but there was no oversight. There was no somebody checking on them. So I'm looking at a piece of paper. It shows me I got enough money. I'm good, without having any check or somebody looking over that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened. And in terms of the community being upset, imagine the city staff. I mean, we're dealing with this. I've personally been dealing with this for a year and a half. We don't have enough money because of this issues, because of the overspending, to do things that I want to do. I'm something of a perfectionist, so I know all these things are outstanding, and so yeah, of course, I'm upset about the same thing. I think all this, the current council we're all upset. The community is upset. But it was something, as you mentioned, that happened in 2014 and 2015 that we can't change. All we can do now is try to make it right now, the best we can. And what that means is cutting back, pulling our belts in another notch. And it is not fun because, for example, we have like some of the department heads are doing 2 jobs. I mean, I'm running public works and city manager. Assistant city manager is doing his job and community development and economic development. And I know finance is still trying to recover from all this stuff. This is not something that you can recover overnight.
Yeah.
It's a process. And I know maybe a lot of people in the community don't see immediate results, but for us, it's kind of like the analogy is we're planting the seeds. Like there was a major forest fire, right? And it's all gone.
Yeah.
And we're out there, clearing the forest, and we're planting seeds and we're watering the seeds. The seeds don't grow up to be trees overnight, unfortunately. And right now what we're seeing is like little buds starting to grow. Hey, it's starting to happen.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of the community, which may be farther back, they can't see those buds yet. All they see is this devastation, but we in the staff, we know, look, it's coming back. Yeah. But it's going to be a few years until we're full strength.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes, we're upset because, that money was, overspent, whatever. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you read the paper, and I'm going to read you a quote from the Ivy Press, it says, a budget report released last week by the State Comptroller Office paints a damning picture of the city of Calexico's financial management over the 2-year period. So, when you read that, you're like...
Well, that I acknowledge that. We're not even saying that that's false. The thing is about this whole thing is that at least since I've been city manager and I've been involved with this, I've seen this discussed in the council chambers numerous times. It's not like the city was trying to hide this or pull the wool over anyone's eyes. This has been discussed every time we have our financial discussions, which is right now we're doing 4 times a year, every quarter. This is brought up. Like, back in 2014 they overspent $4 million, and over 15 they overspent $5 million. It's been discussed. It's not like it's a secret. Yeah. Now, when the report comes out, obviously it brings up the old wounds. It's like pulling a scab off the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's frustrating for us as staff to be lumped in with that, because words can say anything, but we feel like we're doing the best we can for the city with the most integrity that we possibly can bring. But we're being lumped in with what happened in the past, and that's frustrating, especially when we're doing multiple jobs, we're working overtime, we're putting our lives into this thing to make it come back, and to have that lumped on us, it's a little frustrating. Yeah,
it's like I told you, you were trying to, last time we spoke, you're like, I'm trying to gain the city's trust.
Exactly.
And then this comes up, and
it doesn't. Yeah, and that doesn't help, right? And gaining the trust back from the community, it doesn't happen overnight either. Mm-hmm. They have to see a pattern of, they're doing this. They said they were going to do this, they're doing this. They said they're going to do this, they're doing it. So we're trying to do that. What we say we're going to do, we're trying to do that.
Do you think that the oversight of the misspending and all that was because of we had city managers that were like here for a little bit, and we had a new one, and then do you think that's one of the reasons why
that's part of it? I think that's a lot of it. The other thing was our finance department. Best word was in disarray. That's the nicest word. It was in disarray. They changed software, I think, and nobody knew how to run the software. They didn't know how to get the stuff from the old software to the new software. Records were lost. Our financial consultant couldn't even paint the picture completely of what happened in those years. That's how bad it was. And she's like a forensic accountant. Yeah. And so if she can't figure out what they didn't even keep the proper records or any of that stuff. We lost our grant funding from the CDBG because the finance department wasn't talking to this department, and no reports were submitted, et cetera, et cetera. It was a complete mess. And it's not like we're from the city staff, we're not saying, we're trying to hide it. It was a mess. Yeah. It was a disaster. But what we are saying is that it's turning.
Yeah. So what happens now? Do you think there's gonna be a legal procedure? Or is it just gonna be like, you know what,
we've opened it. We opened the doors to the DOJ late last year. Said, there were issues in 2014 and 15. Here's our books, and I'm telling you, if our finance consultant, who's a forensic accountant, tells us I can't put the picture together, then nobody's going to be able to put the picture together.
Yeah,
it's a big cloud of what happened, and so all we know is the storm came through, and the result was the city was negative $4 million in the general fund balance. Now, since then, the city took out a loan from their wastewater funds to the general fund to cover that. We've been paying $760,000 every year. So I think we're on our third year and we out of 5 of paying that back. In a couple of years, that will hopefully be behind us. In fact, maybe by the end of this year, we don't know, because we're looking at some possible revenue sources that may or may not come in. We don't want to say for sure, but it really looks like that we're going to make that up maybe by the end of this year, mid next year. And I'm talking fiscal years. Mm-hmm. The fiscal year ends on July 1st. So we'll see. We'll see. But all I can tell you is things are looking much better from our perspective and from staff, because we're close and we see things, closer. The public is kind of like on the hill back, and, where they don't see the bushes starting to come up and the trees starting to grow. You can see a little bit, because if you just drive around Calexico, you see all the street projects, you see water projects. There's a lot of things going on. You can see, those are things you can physically see.
Yeah. And plus I think there was like a $300,000 surplus or something like that.
That was, now imagine, this was 17 and 18, right? I come into this job in December of 2017, and the fiscal year ends up July 1st, okay? Or June 30th, whatever. Within about 2 to 3 weeks in my tenure here, we found out that the budget was going to be $700,000 in the hole, because the city, when they did their budgeting in 2017, they assumed that the fire department was going to take these massive cuts, and that was going to cover the $700,000. Well, that might have happened if they would have taken the concessions, let's say in July of 2017. But this is December, it's already 6 months into the thing. Even if they took all the cuts in the world, we're not going to make up $700,000. No way. Yeah. But we were able to negotiate with them, and they took some cuts, and they're to their credit, they took cuts. But that didn't cover the $700,000 by any stretch of imagination. We ended up tightening the belt a couple of notches even more, stopped spending, we froze hiring. The amazing thing, the incredible thing was, by the end of the fiscal year, it was a $300,000 surplus. Went from a negative $700,000 to a plus $300,000. And part of that was, it was luck. There was more tax revenue than we anticipated that came in. There was more other revenues that came in. And so, yeah, I'll take luck. Yeah. But we were amazing. We had $300,000 plus. Now this year, it looks like we're going to be another couple $100,000 in the plus. We continue that, we're going to build back the revenues and build back our reserves. The city needs a reserve. And what a reserve is money in the bank. It's just like when people say, you need to have 6 months of money in the bank in case you lose your job, in case, all that stuff, right? You should have 6 months in it's the same thing with the city business. We should have 6 months of general fund money, annual funds in there. And our general fund is somewhere in the 17 million range right now. So half of that, we should have 8 million in reserves. That's what it should be. We have 400,000. So it's not like it's great, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So what some of the people are asking, like, what are some of the steps that we're doing to kind of prevent, this same situation happen again? So,
well, when I first came on in December, my biggest goal, besides balancing the budget, not only that year, but this year too, the third priority was to hire a finance director who was honest, a finance director who knew what they were doing. And I think that we have done that now. We have a finance director who's in charge of that department and is running it, and it's going. And that is your first step, right? Yeah. The lead person, right? Honest and know what they're doing. We have that now. And so they're implementing all these things, these policies that will prevent that from happening again. We're already, in fact, you look at that report, the state controller's report, we've already addressed probably 85 to 90% of those items before they even came here. Mm-hmm. So what they told us was like, hey, we realize that you guys are not the ones that created this. And by the way, kudos to you you've already addressed most of these issues without even us telling you. There were a few things that are still ongoing that take a time to get all those things fixed. But I think hopefully that answered your question. How are we going to prevent that from by implementing policies, by having a finance director that is watching and overseeing, a professional finance director?
But is there some way that like people can overpower the financial director? Like say like, financial director says like, oh no, we don't have money, and they're like, oh no, who cares? Like, write the check or.
No. Even I don't think I could do that. I have a certain spending limit that council has implemented, and I mean, if I tried to do that, she'd probably say, well, where's it in the budget? Mm-hmm. And I would say, well, just find a line item. Well, there's not one. So if you have your budget and you're constantly watching what the numbers, because the budget has, let's say, 1,000 items in it, right? Mm-hmm. And each one has a line item. So one line item could be purchase vehicles. One item could be purchase office supplies. Well, if we're at 75% of that budget item for office supplies, and I go tell the finance director, I want office supplies. She's like, hey, we're already at 75%. You're going to have to hold off, until we're, 75% into the year. Yeah. So that's your first line of defense is your budget. And she's watching that. You can't spend more than your budget. The only way you can spend more than your budget is if you go to a budget amendment, and you have to ask council for that. The way they got around that, or not around, I don't want to say they got around it. The way it happened was their budgeting was a disaster. They didn't know how much. They thought there were more revenue than there was, and so they budgeted, way more than what they could spend.
So, but they were spending money that they didn't have. They thought they were going to have.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's not the way you should run.
Correct. So, in when we did our budget this year, we had a number of items on our revenues that were anticipated. We anticipate cannabis revenue. We anticipate more revenue from XYZ. But when we did our budget, we didn't base our budget on those revenues. Mm-hmm. We had to put a freeze on the hiring until those revenues became reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I was trying to go so. I mean, we're not gonna do that anymore. We say no. We're expecting this money, and yet
in your budget you tell council, I think we're gonna get $2 million from cannabis. Let's spend it all, and it doesn't come. That's what happened basically. And so we're not putting our eggs in the basket until the eggs are actually in the basket.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, that's what I guess what I was trying to understand was okay, so we never actually had that money. It was just that we were overspending, and at the end of the day, when it came time to pay the bills, we were in the.
That's, of all appearances, it seems like that's what happened. Of course, like I said, it's a big cloud. I mean, so.
Okay, yeah, because people say keep telling me oh, ask them where is that money? Where did it go? So to me, I've been thinking we never actually had that money. We just overspent that money.
Overspent on all the budget items, police, fire, you name it. For what the revenues they had to spend, they just over budgeted.
And yeah, and it's just crazy that you would overspend.
I think about that every day. I mean, I told you, in staff level, we're living with this. I mean, we're struggling, every day with this issue. Where are we going to find the money to fix that? I don't know. Our community center, the community center over there, the roof is gone. It is leaking like crazy. We got a quote, $75,000. Another quote for $55,000. Where are we going to find that? We don't have it. So what do we do? We get Public Works to go over there and try to put some tar on it. But you know what I'm saying? So we're struggling with this. We know for a fact that we're not up to par when it comes to providing the services this community deserves. We know it. And people say the parks and all this stuff, we know, because we can't hire the people to do it because we don't have money. We're not going to overspend. I refuse to overspend. And again, I'm a perfectionist. That's very difficult when I see a park, weeds growing up, and saying, can't do it. And knowing what I want that thing to be perfect and clean and every blade of grass perfect, it's frustrating beyond belief.
Yeah.
So
I have a couple of questions from, a couple of my listeners.
Sure.
Danitza Rodriguez, she's asking where are the millions that we never had?
So again, I just answered sort of that. Overspent.
Yeah. She had another question. Why isn't there a rec center, for kids in Calexico to grow up? The Little League needs to be rebuilt. Give kids hope that there's a future in Calexico. Many new businesses coming, food, small businesses, any prospects that.
So, I have great news on this front. In terms of activities, we have no shortage of activities from our rec department.
Yeah.
They just need to contact Sandra Toller. She's got plenty of things for kids to do and adults too. Yeah. She does adult.
Yeah, I've been trying to contact Sandra Toller and she's always too busy for me.
If you just look on, Facebook and the Calexico Rec Center, Calexico, all their activities that she sends out, calendars. There's all kinds of stuff that they're doing. Yeah. But that's good news. Also the other good news is that we're working on rehabbing one park, which is Risen Field. Hopefully, it looks like we may have some volunteer labor that's going to go in there and help us grade it. We already had a grant from IID to put the lights. The lights are coming. Hopefully, we can get the grass situations. Grass won't grow because it's a retention basin, and all the salts from the street get into the retention basin. Grass doesn't like salt content, won't grow. But we have some plans that we can possibly implement. Obviously, we don't have the money for it. But if we get some volunteers to do the work, I think we can have it done.
Which field is this?
It's called Risen Park. It's a retention basin off of Andrade, north of 98.
Just before the bridge?
I think so.
A baseball diamond?
Yes, and it's all dirt and it looks crappy and all that stuff. Yeah, that is the one. Grass won't grow in there. We could water it
I remember for a while, people were trying to get grass to grow there and
it won't grow because of the salt content. So we're looking at some remediation. It's possible. I'm not guaranteeing it because I'm not guaranteed from the volunteers, but it really looks like that we're going to be able to fix that park up to some good standards. That's Rising. That's two baseball fields and one small one. Another piece of good news is the Cordova Park. As I'm sure a lot of people are aware that we're working on 3 baseball fields, 3 nice baseball fields, and a soccer field and a basketball court. Oh. We do have some money for that. We don't have enough. I would love to just put it out to bid tomorrow, but I know that the money that we have wouldn't cover the total work. So what we're trying to do is kind of piecemeal it with volunteer work. It looks like we've got another volunteer agency, that is going to hopefully come in within the next 3 to 4 weeks and start the grading process. Mm-hmm. We already have the design, the rough design for the grading. We get the baseball fields graded and the soccer field. That's the first step on getting this thing completed, because then all we need is irrigation, fencing, and lights. Mm-hmm. So we are getting pretty close to getting those baseball fields and soccer fields.
That's been like a work in progress for a long time.
It is. We got the final design like November, December of last year.
But you guys put in that, is it an inclusive playground, right?
Yeah, well, that one's already done.
Yeah.
That I really think that Cordova Park is going to be one of the premier parks. When we get these baseball fields, that's going to be one of the premier parks in the entire county. Oh, I really think that. Oh. When all of the improvements are completed. Mm-hmm.
I have another question from Irma Elena Pastrana. Mm-hmm. She says, what's your vision for Calexico the next 5 years? And what steps are you taking to achieve your goal?
So my number one, my prime directive, my number one goal has always been from the very beginning is to get the finances in order, to get this city back in shape financially, with a decent reserve, so that there's no more financial concerns, that we can get the proper number of policemen, the proper number of firemen, the proper number of laborers to fix the parks. to me, that is my number one goal. And it's kind of like the Titanic. Whenever you turn the wheel, it doesn't turn immediately. And I guarantee you, I am impatient. Like I want to see it tomorrow, like fixed. But it takes time, and we're making those sacrifices. The employees specifically made a lot of sacrifices on their concessions. And I talked about the fire department, but also the police department made huge concessions. CMEA made concessions. Other labor, unions made concessions to make this happen. So she's asking what my goal is for the city. My goal I envision a city 5 years from now with the proper reserves, with finances, with the proper fire, with the proper police, the proper employee numbers. And I'm going to give you an example. And I say this example a lot of times. So the city, I'll compare the city of El Centro and Calexico because we're the closest in population. Mm-hmm. So El Centro's population, 46,000, probably more now, but that was what the census said. Our population, 41,000. So you would think that our employees would be pretty close because we have the same, more or less same population. The city of El Centro's employee number is about 280, I think, something like that.
Just the city alone.
They have 280 employees, something like that. Somewhere between 260 and 200. I don't know what the exact number is. The city of Calexico number of employees, 140. Literally half.
Yeah.
Now, that tells you, if that doesn't tell the whole story, I don't know what does. I mean, we should be at 200 and something, 260. And so, yeah, we can't provide the services that I so desperately want to provide right now. But my goal for 5 years is to have those services and have the revenues that we need. And it really looks like that it's going to happen, especially with this council who's been approving such thing as cannabis. The revenue that's going to be coming in from that, we're going to see what the actual revenue is, but it's going to be probably very substantial in this city. Now, I mean, that's a controversial subject, but I mean, millions of dollars coming in from one source it's not something I want to turn away.
Yeah.
Especially when we're so desperate for that revenue.
Especially when it's, whether you like it or not, it's happening, people are smoking marijuana and if you can tax it, well.
Right. And that's what I told some of the council members, like, especially with this retail stuff, I showed them. You can open up a website and look, and it shows all the deliveries that are happening at that very moment. And I said, look, City of Calexico, there's 3 deliveries happening right now. So either we approve this and we can tap into some of this revenue, or you say no, but it still happens and we don't get the revenue.
Yeah.
So that's the deal.
Yeah. She had a second part to her question that says, what strategy do you plan on utilizing to unite the current city council in order to avoid situations that have occurred with previous councils?
I don't need a strategy because this council, to me, is the most unified it has been. I mean, since I've seen this council. Mm-hmm. I mean, the council at the end of the last election cycle, it was even. It was unified. I mean, the members in fighting between themselves, but they weren't showing it up on the dais. Mm-hmm. They were professional, and I saw a more professional council at the end of that session there than probably had been in many years. And this council also, I mean, the new council members that have come in, they are behaving themselves like professionals, like they should be. They're honorable. I don't need a strategy to unify them because they seem to be unified as it is, and we'll see when we get another council member how that dynamic goes. But right now, I couldn't be more proud of this council.
Good. That's good. That's good to hear. I forgot that the first question had a second part. Businesses, how are we doing in terms of, attracting new businesses?
So, I mean, it's no secret that the city of Calexico has been deemed the most business unfriendly city in the county, right? For many, many years. And that's another item that the assistant city manager and myself are working hard on, is to portray the city in a better light when it comes to business friendly stuff. And we have been intervening in sometimes when developers come in to make sure that they are aware that we want them, that we're going to work with them professionally, and that they're welcome to the city. And we're seeing, like I said, remember I mentioned sort of the seed, we're planting seeds, and they're growing. Right now, we have so many developers who are interested in coming to the city. We don't have a lot of things like set in stone, but if I were a betting person, I would bet on the city of Calexico right now, because there's so many developers interested in developing in the city. You talked about the 5-year plan and what the goals. One of the goals is we have a lot of areas in the city that are dirt. We want to call it infill. We want to fill those with commercial businesses, places that bring jobs to the city. In fact, we have one development that's coming, I would say in the 90%, 95% level, that's going to bring 60 jobs to the city in the next 6 months. That's just one. And that one's the most sure that I can think of at this moment, but there are so many others. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'm just saying this to say it, but it really looks bright in terms of the development in the city of Calexico right now. But it takes a lot of work in the background to get there, to change people's perception, because the perception is, I don't want to work with Calexico. They just give you a hard time. And at the end of the day, I just spend money. And it takes a while to change that perception. Yeah. But we're doing it one at a time as they come in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's good to know. And I mean, especially like when you get situations like this, articles in the paper or whatnot, that kind of like,
it's another slap in the face. They talk about fake news, and I mean, I'm not into that whole thing, but I mean, to me, that was fake news because, in some respects, because they're coming out and with these tantalizing headlines. And in the headlines, they don't mention this was like 4 years ago. They say, City of Calexico loses $8.5 million. See my story at 5. I mean, I'm going to watch that, right? And then when you get to watch the story, it's like, this was in 2014 and 15. Oh, thanks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they forget to mention that we're not in the red anymore.
Oh, right. Oh, and in that report, they didn't forgot to mention the last 2 paragraphs, which said the city should be commended for all the things that they've been doing, right? Yeah. Forgot to mention that, but these tantalizing headlines, I mean, that sells papers. I get it. I don't think that's ethical when they do that, but that's my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I was going to mention too, that, and because I was reading the report and the last 2 paragraphs really, reiterates that, the current administration is doing a good job at, fixing these things that were,
They could start the headline like that, but that doesn't sell papers.
Yeah. City of Calexico doing a good job at
City of Calexico fixes issues from 2014-15. I don't want to look at that, But City of Calexico, somebody loses $8.5 million. I'm going to read that. Yeah. So I get it, right? Yeah. It's business, but it's still not ethical in my view.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, those 4 million, whatever you want to say it, it's not money that we really had. It's money that we overspent.
Correct.
So like, there's no way that we can say like, let's get it back. Let's go hunt somebody down and bring it back.
It's, to our knowledge, nobody took $8 million and walked off. It was a matter of, we think we're going to get, say they thought their general revenue was going to be 20 million, but actually it was only 17, let's spend 20 million because it's coming in. Yeah. That was that kind of thing. But again, I mean, that's just looking back 3 years. It's hard to know exactly, but that's what we think.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you want to add today?
No, I'm good. No. I'd be happy to keep doing these and inform your people about what's going on. I like this. This is something where we can, provide information to the community. I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. I'd be more than glad to come back again, maybe like in a month and a half. Kind of like a month and a half would be.
Of course.
I mean, unless that something big comes up.
I'm happy to do this as we can.
Something big that's, not always bad news, like something big that, we're getting new businesses or whatnot, talk about, the good things that are happening in Calexico, not only the bad things.
Just so right now, it's just all like, it's right in our fingertips. It's by maybe in a month and a half or 2 months, I'll have more information.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. And thank you once again.
Thank you, Jose.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.